So what are some key things a co-op can take away from a Merge-Purge report? The big thing is if we're hitting up against the house file. If we're hitting up against their house file in the merge and we show a whole bunch of drops to the house file, one, it may or may not be a house file drop. Like we talked about, it could be that's where they lump the broker report for suppression files or other types of files in priority in the merge. But if we're hitting up against the house file, that should be a big flag for us. Either the client isn't sending us their entire house file or more recent set of data or whatever it is. If we're seeing hits up against their house file as a co-op, since we have their customer file resident, that should be a flag. People should be asking questions. Have we got the most recent update? Are we taking in everything that they're considering a house file record into account and when we omit and create our own prospect list? That's a real biggie. That's on our broker reports. When we see those big house file hits or a client is saying that your nets are really low, we need to make sure that our nets are low, not because we're hitting the house file. High match rates against other lists means the co-op is finding the same names on different lists that the other co-ops are providing as well. And high match rates against multiples and higher priority are generally present. So what that means is high match rates typically mean low nets. So if we send out 100,000 records and we end up with 20,000 names mailed net, well, something funny is going on. Either multi-buyers are in priority in the merge, we're lower priority in the merge, something weird is going on if it's not hits against the house file. Now, if we send in a file, because we're a co-op and not a rental list, right? If we send in a list into the merge and it nets differently than any other co-op, that should be a signal to us. Something's a little weird. If our nets are really high, meaning that we sent 100,000 names and we ended up getting 95,000 records, well, either we're finding the wrong set of audiences or we're highest priority in the merge. Something is wrong. Something's definitely wrong if we have high nets. If we do see that they haven't changed anything in the merge priority and we're random in the merge, we send out 100,000 records and we net 95,000, to Igor's point, it's likely not going to work. Now, there's some exceptions to this. There are rental lists, for instance, like new mover files. New mover files typically have pretty high nets. I'm not talking about NCUA. I'm talking about third-party market files that identify new movers. Sometimes those types of files have really high nets in the merge and still work, and they might work for a home furnishings offer or something like that. So a high net doesn't necessarily mean bad performance, but it's usually an indicator that it's not going to work very well. Back to it depends. So low nets, similar to high match rates, indication of suppression files or being applied in higher priority for a co-op, not just on a rental list. The low match rates can mean there are very few list sources in the merge. Yeah, so if we end up getting a pretty good net when we have low match rates, they might be only mailing 3 lists, and we're one of them. It could happen. Unlikely, but it could happen. And that could be the reason why we ended up netting high in the merge. But like I said, it's generally an indication of poor performance. But similarly, if you see, we send 100,000 records and we netted 10,000, that means something funny is going on in the merge. And those 10,000 records that are left over probably aren't going to work either, because it's the uniques of the uniques. It's the only thing left over in the merge.
Well, we usually competing with a very large competitors, like say Epsilon, right? They mail much more than we do, right?
Yep.
And so it's almost like they're forcing us to kind of run away to the hills, maybe find some unique names in order just to have a higher net, if possible, of course, without loss of performance.
Yes, theoretically, randomization in the merge helps with that. Doesn't necessarily take care of it, but it should put most of the lists on an equal playing field. But if Epsilon is providing 2 million records and we're supplying 100,000 records, then we're going to have high dupes, right? And if Weiland's providing another 1 million records, we're going to have a high set of number of dupes. And like I said, then things get really thin for us. It's going to be harder to perform. So what are some key things that we can look at the merge report? I think I talked about most of these things. A client will generally only provide a broker report. Oh, I did provide this. Shows gross names, input, NICSEs. NICSEs are unmailable records. NCUA hits, house file hits, hits to the do not mail, do not rent, DMA. adjusted gross names, net names, and then the multis and uniques associated with that record. So if we end up with 50,000 net names, the broker report will show of those 50,000, let's say 25,000 are multis and 25,000 are unique. Some mailers will code them differently. They'll give them a separate key code to see if the multis outperform the uniques or vice versa. I haven't really seen any benefit to that over the years, to code multis and unique separately, but some folks still do it. And it's too bad, you know, I've asked for this before and been shot down, but clients generally don't want to provide an interaction report. There's still some, you know, if they have some secret sauce, you know, whatever they're doing in the merge or however they're mailing, it's going to come out in the interaction report because you see every list that goes into the merge. It can tell you so much. And if it's a big campaign again, like if we got the interaction report for endurance warranty, that thing could be 2 feet tall. That shows how every list that they're mailing interacts with every other list that they're trying to mail. But there's so much valuable information in there. You can really see what I used to look at in the old days, again, in my prior career, when I had these, you know, one-on-one relationships with the client, I could ask for their interaction report. And it was a great source to show, here's all the lists that they're mailing. And I would hand that over to the business development team and say, here you go. You know, if we want great list performance for the sharper image, we need to go get these lists because they're not on the co-op today. So the interaction report, if we can ever get one, highly encourage you to do it. So much good information in there.